to Movie Film Studios, the only podcast that takes you inside the mind of two studio executives as we unravel and then re-ravel the best that Hollywood has to offer. I'm Isaac.
And I'm AJ, and today we're invited by Warner Brothers themselves, the actual brothers, to a private screening of Geostorm. Yes, it's happening. The storm is here.
Obviously, we complained last week that our screener got lost in the mail, but we received instructions that to get our screener, all we'd have to do is go to the Ritz Cinema in Randwick. Mm-hmm. If we go to the counter there and just tell them our names, exchange $16 for these white pieces of paper, walked into this private room they'd set up for us. A few other people sort of came in, but then... I'm
assuming they were also executives.
Executives, and then they broadcast the movie for us right up there on the screen.
It was great. Props to Warner Brothers for doing that.
Oh no, exactly. They didn't have to. And again, we are small fish in a very big pond, trying to obviously reverse that to be big fish in the small pond.
That's right.
But we are making waves.
That's right, we are indeed. Now, before we get on with today's episode, we're going to do what we always do, and that's catch up with how our film went last week. Now, our film last week was, of course, KNIG HTS. Isaac, tell me, how many millions do we rack in?
There's future forecasting, right? So we haven't actually had a release yet. It is still in the workshop. And I say workshop very deliberately because Movie Film Studios Workshop, which was the splinter company that we formed last week for the production costs.
Tim Benson.
With Tim Benson, head there. They've gone on strike.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, so they're trying to form a bit of a Pixar deal, which obviously was like a Splinter's faction of ILM originally and then got bought out by Disney. Yep. They've splintered from us and then are trying to get bought out by us because obviously we've invested quite a lot of money. Yeah. It's a legal nightmare. We've brought in some replacements. Yep. I mean, obviously they're being called scabs at the picket line by the existing MF Workshop people. They're just kids' party entertainment face painters. We obviously needed the robotic heads that we're going to do for the Arctic fox and the snow rabbit. Yep. Obviously can't afford that. Can't afford to bring in the skilled labor. So just face painting at the moment. It actually looks pretty good.
It does?
Again,
that's okay.
John Boyega with a white Arctic fox face paint may look controversial. I assure you that it's nothing.
I don't look. I think it'll all come out in the print. I think it'll all be, once we get it on celluloid and it's on the screen, people will be fine with it. I think the makeup will be perfect. Yeah. So I commend you actually for finding a solution to this problem. I mean, it's a shame that our workshop has gone down this road. I'm feeling a bit betrayed, to be perfectly honest. I put a lot of faith into Tim Benson as a puppeteer, as a creator. But that's for the courts to settle.
Yeah, obviously our legal department is rapidly expanding to be the largest department here at Movie Film Studios, and we're working on contract negotiation, trying to, I don't want to say cut off the head of the snake, and no spoilers there as to whether Mr. Benson there will or will not have a job in the near future, but I guarantee you that we will forcibly reacquire movie film workshops, MF workshops, and they will be back with us. And they will be heavily involved in getting future productions out on the screen.
That's fantastic. I'm very happy to hear that. All right, let's move on with our first segment, which is This Week in Trailers. Now, this week we actually had the pleasure of watching trailers in a legitimate cinema. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, we walked in, we assumed that a lot of the work would be done for us. Obviously, normally we have to scour the internet for the latest releases. Kind of assumed that, we talk about 2 trailers at the start of the film. We'd have 3 or 4 trailers to choose from, pick the best 2, and go from there. Didn't really work out that way.
No, they only played 1 trailer.
They played a whole bunch of ads and then a single trailer. So,
but let's discuss that single trailer. And then we'll discuss another trailer after that.
Yeah, sure. The one that we actually had to do the work to find.
So the first film, the only film that we saw at the screening today was the upcoming Murder on the Orient Express.
Obviously based on the classic Agatha Christie murder mystery novel starring the famous Belgian detective Hercule Poirot. I have read the book. I think I'm actually currently going through the Hercule Poirot back catalogue. I'm about 24 of his books in, of 50 or so. I can't tell you where the rabbit hole ends.
Is there any way that we can hire Agatha Christie for our own purposes? considering we do have time-traveling technology now.
We do, yeah.
I'm fairly certain she's no longer with us, but...
She's not, no.
But... someone with that much creative output really should be put to better uses.
Yeah, I mean, they don't make authors quite like they used to. You look at Enid Blyton, was like writing like 4 or 5 famous 5 Secret 7 books a year.
Right.
Like, and Agatha Christie's just churning out all of her Hercule Poirots, her Miss Marples, a few stage plays. And now you sort of look at, your George R.R. Martins and your Patrick Rothfusses and
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I mean, at least J.K. Rowling's still putting out books under a different name.
Sporadically, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's not like 10 years between novels like it is for some of those fantasy authors. And to be fair, those books are like 10 books long. But I think, everyone's...
Tolkien as well, he's not doing much.
He's like, no one really puts... I mean, the person who's top of the chain is obviously our Stephen Viking, who is putting out, I think, 3 books a day at the moment since he's been in our employ.
Yep.
And...
was he still in the building?
Yeah, I may have locked him in the room with a typewriter, and he's just like, typewriters are such antiquated technology. I'm like, quiet you.
Single spotlight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So
Movie Film Studios is comprised of exactly 3 departments. There's us, the 2 studio executives.
Yep.
There's our crack team of lawyers, and that's probably, 50 to 60 strong
I mean, we've got a recruitment orientation today. I think there's 12 new legal interns coming through as well, so it's rapidly expanding.
Yeah, and a writer's room, which is just Stephen V. King in a room with a spotlight on a typewriter.
You say writer's room, there's only one person in there.
Just one room.
Soon to be 4 departments as soon as we reacquire Movie Film Workshop.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you're right. It's a house divided at the moment. But
let's talk about this trailer. So it stars an incredible cast. Everyone is in it. So we've got Johnny Depp, we've got Judi Dench, we've got Ridley Daisy, we've got
Josh Gad.
Josh, is he?
Josh Gad,
Okay.
From Book of Mormon and Frozen and a variety of other things.
And what's his face? That English guy that played a Hogwarts.
Gilderoy Lockhart.
Yeah, what's his name? Oh my gosh.
He's a director as well.
He is too, and he's done a lot of stuff. He does a lot of Shakespeare.
You know him. You know him.
He's doing an awful French Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a running gag in a lot of the Poirot books where all the English people it's like, you'd know back in France, he's like, I am not French, I am Belgian, and it's like, so I guess I don't know the difference between the 2 accents, but there is obviously a thing there where everyone thinks that he's French. He's actually Belgian, so you can't accuse him of doing a bad French accent, because maybe Belgian sounds like a bad French accent. No one knows. That's the point.
This is true. There's no way to find out at all. And it looks, in terms of the film, it looks interesting. I've actually never read Murder on the Orient Express. I have no idea what it's about. I'm assuming it's about some kind of murder on something called the Orient Express, which seems to be a train.
It does. It looks very much like a train in the trailer.
Yes, and it looks very nicely stylized, actually. It's a very nice-looking film. Johnny Depp's playing yet another character where he doesn't use his real accent as well. He's got a it's like a Brooklyn, New Jersey style.
Yeah,
accent,
he's a mobster, I believe, is the character. And then you have your Judi Dench's and Michelle Pfeiffer's, and
that's right. Yeah,
it's like it is really a star-studded cast, and Hercule Poirot being played by the guy whose name we can't remember. I want to say Richard Attenborough, but it's like completely not. But it's something
100% not.
No, but it's something as equally British sounding. It's like Richard, something classic in English, and then Attenborough.
Yeah,
and it's got that sort of bra sound on it.
He directed one of the Thor films as well. Like, it's not a unfamous person. Kenneth Branagh. There you go. I told you it had the Attenborough sort of Branagh sort of sound to it. Yeah. You are right. I am right. Thank you. Check it out in cinemas whenever it comes out. I can't remember when.
Yeah. Look, I feel as though I don't know if they're going to try and franchise this film. Obviously, there's a massive amount of Poirot mysteries to go, and whether Kenneth Branagh continues to play that role in Death on the Nile and Lord Edgware Dies and Dumb Witness, and
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, and some of them are very, very good.
It's that kind of. I thought it'd be Murder on the Orient Express too.
Yeah, I mean that's probably
this
how
time the train did it.
This time the train did it. Yeah, who knows? It could be good, it could be bad. Obviously, David Suchet has been playing Poirot in sort of television movies for 30 years or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then there's also a very famous I think Death on the Nile from back in the 70s as well. So there's been a couple of iterations of this.
But this is one of the first ones I've seen in a very long time that is meant to be more than just a TV movie. Like it is.
Yeah.
They've spent some money on this one, I think. But anyway, let's move on to our second trailer that we watched, that we researched.
Now, this is very much more in speed with the movie film studios mentality.
This is our MO on page. Like someone has just clearly snuck into our office and just taken one of our spec scripts. It's called 24 Hours to Live.
And it stars Ethan Hawke.
As a hitman of some
kind.
I
think it's probably ex-CIA or ex-secret agent. He's been burned by the organisation he's worked for. They've taken his wife. They've taken his child. They've killed him and they've brought him back to life or something like that. The basic premise of the film is they've implanted a stopwatch on the inside of his wrist, which counts down from 24 hours, hence the title 24 Hours to Live. And they're like, if you don't do what we tell you, then you're going to die when that counter reaches zero. And I imagine he can buy more time by completing their tasks or something like that, but he's not having any of it, and he's turning on his captors, and it's very, very action heavy. I think even in the trailer, from the executive producers of John Wick.
Yes.
So it kind of feels like that very action shoot 'em up. And again, they've probably got one of the guys who was just sort of driving past the studio where they're filming John Wick. It's like, oh, they film John Wick there? Executive producer of John Wick. That's...
Now, I haven't seen John Wick yet, and I actually do want to watch it because, as I recall, it's something that very slightly subverts the whole action genre as well. It's sort of a little bit more... It sort of isn't... It's very self-aware of what it's trying to do.
Yeah, so in a way, I think it got compared quite a lot to the video game style of shoot-em-ups.
Yeah.
Where... it's an impossible number of bad guys. It's one guy who is just super good at what he does.
Yeah, and he's out for... he's trying to find his dog, I believe, is the whole point of John Wick.
No, I mean, the plot of John Wick is that his wife buys this present for him, and then she dies, and then it turns out the present is a dog. And so he's got this bond with the dog.
Yeah.
And then people come in to kill him, and they kill the dog, and he's just like... you killed my dog.
Oh, so it's
the dog is the catalyst for him going back into this life of killing people.
That's great. That's such a weird idea. It's such an odd thing to have as a catalyst for his action. Whereas in this, it's kind of like, we've implanted this device in your wrist and you will die once that time has run out. It's kind of like, well, what else am I going to do?
There was that Justin Timberlake movie from a few years ago.
That's what I was thinking too,
In Time or something along those lines. And
which was more of a sci-fi
It was, but they're very similar aesthetic to a countdown watch on your wrist. Obviously, I think their time was the currency, and they'd conquered the ability for people to age. So long as you had enough time left.
Yeah.
And the poor people were working 24 hours a day just to get 10 hours of time left. Whereas the rich had as much time as they wanted and were essentially immortal. So
yeah. I also got slight hints of a film called Predestination, which was an Australian film.
Oh, yeah. And it also had Ethan Hawke,
also starring Ethan Hawke as well, which is, again, much more of a sci-fi time-traveling concept. But... There's shades of it in there. I don't know if it's just because Ethan Hawke is in it.
It is just because I mean, the same brothers who did Predestination did that vampire one with Ethan Hawke as well, right?
Yeah, so, he's in a lot of their films. Yeah. Daybreakers is that one.
Yeah.
The Spearig brothers. Why do I know that?
I also got sort of shades of White Fang. I may just be thinking of Ethan Hawke.
There was also that. I also was thinking of. I got shades of The Purge as well.
Yeah, and Gattaca.
And
Before Sunset and After Sunrise and Until Midnight and all of those Linkletter films that he's in.
And Boyhood.
I don't know. I have no idea why.
It just felt like there was something there that connected all these films together, and it was that. But that's enough of that. Let's discuss our main event.
Feature film.
The feature film.
Dim the lights.
They're dimmed.
Have the curtains widen out so it's in CinemaScope.
Oh, they're so wide.
And
sit back and relax.
Press play on Geostorm.
Oh, man. Let's go back to when we watched the trailer, right?
Okay, so the trailer, and I don't remember what we discussed about the trailer.
Yeah.
I feel as though we say that the trailer's confused as to what it wants to be. It wants to be a rescue the president. It wants to be a Roland Emmerich disaster film. It doesn't. In one stage, it uses like a Vietnam era war soundtrack with those sort of rock bands of the 70s, and then in another trailer, it's all super serious, but they're the same shots.
Yeah, but they also wanted to inject a bit of gravity in there, and maybe a bit of Interstellar as well in terms of all the space sequences. So it's really like the trailer was a hodgepodge of 50 different films.
So, but if the trailer didn't know what it wanted to be, Geostorm does. Geostorm knows exactly what it wants to be, and it hits those marks with supreme accuracy. I think I had a smile on my face the entire way through this film.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is so stupid.
Yeah.
It is so over the top.
Oh, yeah.
It is so cliched, but it hits those marks with aplomb, and it's phenomenal.
Yep.
And you're sort of like, there's moments where like they pull over and they open their boot, and there's like a rocket launcher just sitting in the boot for no reason. And I'm like, applaud you, movie studio who made this for knowing that they can do that, and no one cares.
No one cares.
The
plot is bonkers, but I mean, let's not get too ahead of ourselves here because there's a lot to decompress and to unpack here. We need to do what we do every week with the films that we watch, and let's do our 2-minute recap.
All right, I believe it's my turn.
It is your turn, Isaac. Now, you are much better at this than I am because I tend to forget things very, very quickly.
Bits and pieces, yeah.
But this film was cohesive in a way.
Exactly, yeah.
So anyway, 2 minutes on the clock. Your time starts now.
All right, so we open with like a montage of weather events with a child's voice voicing over that in 2019 extreme weather events started happening. There's a mixture of like stock footage shots of glaciers melting with a couple of special effects shots of rivers flooding, and it looks kind of like newsreel, YouTube-y clip kind of stock footage montage. We learned that her father built a thing they call Dutch Boy, which is a weather grid. It's like a great big network of satellites that surrounds the Earth that uses microwaves and sonic waves and bombs of water to influence the weather, to stop these catastrophic weather events that have been killing tens of thousands of people. So it's near future. I think the weather events were in 2019, I think they say, and then they built this, the world came together to build this thing, and then Jared Butler comes in and he's just like, I'm doing what I can to save people, and I'm not playing by the rules. And the senators, curmudgeon-y old senators, like, you have to play by the rules. And he's like, I don't want to. You're fired.
Yeah, he was like the team leader that built.
Not just the team leader. I think he's the genius who came up with a lot of the technology as well. Yes. We actually jump forward 3 years. To where...
so he gets fired.
He does get fired by his own brother, played by 21 actor, 21 man. I don't know what his name is.
I know his name. It's Jim Sturgis. Discount Milo Ventimiglia.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. From Heroes.
From Heroes, yeah, and Gilmore Girls. He's not even he's the British version of Milo.
Exactly. So we actually have two British guys playing two American guys. Yeah. And I turned to AJ, I'm like, they're both British, right? And it's like, yes. And then like halfway through the film, they admit that both of those characters were even born in the UK.
Born in the UK.
Anyway, got to get back to the story.
So 3 years later.
21 is like, he's the political guy, has to fire his own brother, causes a rift in their relationship. Flash forward, the system's malfunctioning. It's freezing people in Afghanistan. It's boiling people in Hong Kong. They send up Gerard Butler to find what the problem is. A lot of the central core of this film is the relationship between the two brothers. Obviously, it's a fractured relationship because 21 works for the government and he works very closely with government departments liaising, and he's a very he's political schmoozy kind of guy.
He's kind of in charge of the whole kit and caboodle from this point onwards, I guess.
Yeah, and then Gerard Butler is scientist, build it yourself, very hands-on, and he's a bit of a rule breaker.
Protocols don't mean anything to him.
And so you have this tension there, and obviously over the course of the film, they repair their relationship. But what's happening is there's a virus inside the I want to call it the Geostorm. That's not what Geostorm is.
Inside Dutch Boy, the computer system.
Someone's put it there and is trying to control weather events to form a chain reaction to make a Geostorm. Yes. This is where we get the name of the film. Yeah. And there's clandestine people within the government and on the spaceship, and you don't know who they are, and it's malfunctioning and sucking people out of airlocks who are too close to the truth. And there's the guy in Hong Kong who's figured it all out, goes to try and tell 21, and some guy pushes him in front of the car, and so there's this cover-up conspiracy to kill the president. And then the only way to remove the virus, which is trying to create this geostorm, is to reset the whole system, essentially roll back the drivers on the giant network. And the only person who can do that is the president, because he has the codes. Oh no, wait, he is the codes. Only his biometric fingerprints and retina scans can turn it off.
Indeed.
So they have to convince the president and capture him, and
President Andy Garcia,
and reset the system before the world explodes.
Before the geostorm happens.
Which then they do.
And they do.
And
they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah, so
that was good.
I came into this film expecting it to be A Day After Tomorrow, lots and lots of weather effects, buildings crashing, waves toppling, people freezing, people boiling, because they're the special effects shots they whacked in the trailer, and they are in the film. It's really the back quarter of the film that shows up.
They saved up all their pennies for the big VFX shots towards the sort of back end of the film, and then they unleashed it all at once. There's probably $50 million worth of VFX shots just running in that, let's say 15-20 minutes of the film towards the end.
The first 3/4 of the film is like a Tom Clancy political thriller with
not a good one, by the way.
Not a good one. They did not get Tom Clancy. They got his younger brother Tim.
Bomb Tansy.
Tim Clancy came in and he's just like, my older brother can do this. I can do this too. He cracks out the typewriter, and Tom's just like, actually, did Tom Clancy die? I don't want to. I think he may have passed away. He cracks out Tom Clancy's old typewriter from back in the 80s before PCs were invented, sits down next to his good friend Stephen Viking, and churns out these political things. I really didn't dislike the way in which they took the story. There's plot points where you're like, oh yeah, I can sort of see where this is going, and this has to happen so that can happen, and they set up like relationship stuff that they're going to resolve. Having said that, and again, I know we say this every time. Massive spoilers. We're going to talk about. There's twists in this which we're going to talk about. Like the bad guy. It's not going to be any surprise, because the first time that Ed Harris shows up on screen, I went, he did it.
Yeah,
he's the bad guy. And like 100%. And it is literally the first shot.
First 5 minutes of the film, actually, after the opening sequence where we've got the voiceover and the stock footage. And after the Senate hearing, we see Ed Harris, and Isaac turns to me in the cinema and goes, he's the bad guy. And I'm like, how? What? How do you know that? And all credit to him. He was totally right. He was absolutely correct. And it's not like he went and spoiled the film prior. He didn't read a plot summary, as far as I'm aware. I'm trusting you on this.
No, absolutely not.
And I was blown away by that fact.
But there's just no need for an actor of that quality to be sitting in that shot if he's not the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like that's the problem with casting someone like Ed Harris as the bad guy and not giving him a role that suits his acting chops.
Yeah.
It's just like, I'm like, oh, okay.
But we need to discuss the lead up to that reveal that he is the bad guy. So 21 and Gerard Butler are sort of communicating with each other. So Gerard Butler's up in space on the space station. 21's down on Earth, and they're communicating via video comlink or whatever. And they're revealed to each other that there is some kind of conspiracy going on here, and that it goes all the way to the top. And Gerard Butler immediately suspects the president. President Andy Garcia is behind everything.
Who else could have the access? Only like a very few number of people who have the access to the systems that can lock me out, and the president's one of it. Think of it, he's up for a re-election, so killing 1 billion people around the globe will definitely mean that he'll get re-elected.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. So immediately everyone's on board that Andy Garcia has done it.
Yeah.
And it might be the slicked back oily hair. It might be the fact that I'm not sure he knows that he's in the film. There's a big sequence there, right? So where they're trying to get him away.
Yep.
And Abby Cornish, who plays 21's Secret Service fiance, fires a gun in the air and says, "There's a gunman," and then tries to usher Andy Garcia into a getaway car.
Yep.
And he's just kind of like stumbling from like scene to scene, kind of looking around going, what am I doing? Where am I supposed to be going? I wouldn't be surprised if they said to Andy Garcia, "Oh, we're making this film called Geostorm. Do you want to take a tour of the studio? just wear a really nice suit." And he shows up and is sort of like. He's just sort of like going from scene to scene. Yeah, this is really nice. And then like the film comes out and he's like, it's starring Andy Garcia, and Andy Garcia had no idea he was in the film.
So he could potentially, he has the same role that most executive producers have.
Exactly.
They were given a studio tour at some point, but they went further with it. This time they cast him in the film.
Yeah, they did that Bowfinger thing where they filmed him without his knowledge and cut him into the film. I really feel like, because I mean, Andy Garcia has an exclusive 4-year deal with us to be the president in all of our films.
Absolutely.
With the obviously the optional clause for a second term, a second 4-year term. I think that's probably how they got away with it, because
I think so.
Because otherwise, he's like not legally allowed to sign a contract to be a president in another film.
I think he just confused Geostorm with one of our films.
Yeah, I mean
that's exactly what's happened.
It is so easy to do because this is such a movie film studio idea.
100%
it is so self-aware that it's bad, but also like in doing so it's good. And I talk a lot about expectations with films, and I think expectation is the biggest reason for enjoying or not enjoying a film. I had very high expectations of Ghostbusters, which it did not meet. I had very low expectations of Geostorms, which it did meet. I'm not saying that Geostorm is a better film than Ghostbusters, but I enjoyed it so much more because it set the benchmark for my expectations.
So low.
So low and in a much more achievable way than Ghostbusters ever could have.
Yeah. To clarify, this film is terrible. It's poorly acted for the most part. The script is insanely stupid at times.
Yeah.
And it hits every single cliche that you could possibly think of in terms of that Roland Emmerich-style disaster film. Do you want big sweeping shots of tidal waves coming in and toppling buildings and people either looking at it with a grim realization that they're about to die? You got it. Do you want to see shots of tornadoes coming towards a crowd of people and people running away, and then a cutaway shot to a child looking at a dog that they're trying to... Oh, it's there.
Do you want to see explosions in space and people in spacesuits
it's so there.
About to head out into the void of darkness, but in the last minute grabbing onto like a satellite dish to stop themselves? It's all
so there. Oh, do you want to see someone in the space station where an airlock explodes and then they freeze to death? And then get blown out.
And sucked out.
It's there.
Do you want to? Yeah, it is.
Every single shot that you would expect in that film is in there. It's awful, but I enjoyed the heck out of it.
That's the thing. Like I said, I had a smile on my face the entire time.
Yeah.
So I talked about the rocket launcher scene. Basically, what's happening is...
we should probably... before you go on, we should probably summarize what Ed Harris's plot is, because this ties into that as well.
I don't know.
Well, I do know. So Ed Harris plays the Secretary of State. So his whole plan is he wants to get rid of not only the president, but anyone else that would potentially succeed him in the event that the president gets removed from office via some means, right? So if the president dies, from what I know of US Constitution, if the president dies, it goes to the vice president. If the vice president dies, it goes to someone else. So Secretary of State Ed Harris's job, or a plan is, I need to get rid of the president and anyone else connected to him. And the only date that I know of where the president's schedule is set in stone is a party rally out in Florida where I know he'll be speaking and where all the representatives of the Democratic Party will be there as well because he's up for re-election. So my plan is I'm going to take control of this geosatellite weather system that the US and the rest of the world has developed. I'm going to set off a bunch of storms in a bunch of places. One of them will hit Florida where the president is speaking. That storm will wipe out everyone there. And as a result, I, Secretary of State Ed Harris, will become president of the US. That is his plan.
That's what they assume his plan is. And I kind of have a secret idea that it's not.
Oh, really?
Because, I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
But that's his plan.
That's what they say his plan is in the film. And granted, I think Ed Harris is like, secretly, I have a different plan, which we're not going to explain in the film. Because really, what's the point of setting off a chain reaction if I only need just to like set off one weather event in Orlando? Like the rest of the Geostorm thing doesn't make any sense. And like, and then it's like genocide, and they kind of touch on the fact that like we can wipe out all of America's enemies, and America will once again be where it was in the 1940s, a beacon of glimmering hope for the rest of the world.
Instead of a bank
that loans out money to other countries, I think is his explanation. I don't really think he wants to be president. And they say that so there's a traitor up on the space station who's a computer programmer who's put the virus in the system to make everything work. It's like, oh, you're going to kill everyone on the planet, wipe out everything out. It's like, yeah, but not the best bits. And there's just to say they're saving the really good bits. And you then see a map of the world, and pretty much most of Australia isn't going to get hit. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Save the best bits. Save Australia. That's great. And then I think Ed Harris's plan is he just wants to move to Australia. He can't find a good excuse. He's like, the best reason that I can do to convince my wife to move to Australia is if I destroy the rest of the world, and then we can go settle on up in sunny Queensland
seems
somewhere.
Like it, yeah.
I think that's his secret plan.
Yeah. Nothing ever happens in Australia. That's the problem.
I kind of, you know how in these disaster films where they occasionally input in a shot for the country that it's in. Mm-hmm. So like if it's released in Australia, you see the crashed alien spaceship next to the Sydney Harbour Bridge, or if it's
the Opera House.
In Paris, it'll be next to the Eiffel Tower or wherever the other landmarks are. I really was expecting that from Geostorm.
Yeah,
there's a thing where like 16 nations combined to build this network of weather-changing satellites, and you see in lots of shots they have those 16 flags. And I'm sort of like looking across, I'm like, Australia didn't join in. I mean, it'd be nice if the CG guys just like kind of maybe replaced the Swiss flag with the Australian flag for the Australian release or something like that.
That would be nice. I mean, we flashed every other country in the world, but no, we don't get that's the only shot that's not in this film that you would expect from a disaster film. There's no gratuitous shot of Australia being destroyed.
Yeah, I know.
That's a shame.
That is a shame. I mean, they spent so much money on special effects shots. We would have thought they could have done a special one for each country that got a release.
I know.
So again, we were talking about the bit leading up to the rocket launcher. So Abby Cornish is in a car and she's doing her handbrake turns and driving backwards and firing guns out windows as she's doing it and shooting people. And then Ed Harris has a tracker on the president and he's pulled his car to the side of the road and it's just a standard government issue car.
Yep.
He comes out the back and he's like, we've got to kill the president, pops open the boot and in the boot is a rocket launcher and an assortment of weapons.
Rifles and all sorts of stuff.
For what purpose is this here? And the answer is, it is for the purpose of shooting the president. Like it's like, that... Deus Ex Machina, thing where it's just like, we need these things to be here, so they just are. The writers are just like, we don't give a two dams if it does or does not make sense. We want a rocket launcher shot, and therefore there's a rocket launcher in the...
Yeah, but they escape because... So
the car is a self-driving car, and they also have a beacon on Ed Harris. There's a whole bunch of stuff in this film here where initially I kind of got caught up going, well... The way that the weather satellites work is that it drops these bombs in there, and I'm just like, that's resource inefficient. Like, surely dropping a bomb and having every satellite equipped with bombs, and there's hundreds of thousands of satellites, is so resource intensive. And they send Gerard Butler up into the spaceship, and he's the only person in the shuttle, and they use ever how many millions of dollars worth of fuel to send one guy up into space. And then I'm like, surely it'd be better if they had, like, I mean, they're already... toying with this near future technology, just have a space elevator. Or they're saying they use water and heat to just like have like a pump that's pumping up water and use it with like microwaves and sound sort of stuff. And then you realize that like if you start pulling apart the technology, that's not what the film is about. It's almost like they've deliberately gone, we don't care if it doesn't make sense. This is the world we're living in, and these are the people who are going to save it.
And it makes no sense whatsoever. So the satellite system that they have up in there, to actually, let's discuss the science about this, to actually construct something like that in geostationary orbit would take pretty much all the world's money combined twice over to build what they have up there.
Yeah, I don't think you can do geostationary. You can only do above the equator, and the rest of it's geosynchronous. So the satellites are going to be sort of like in this constant... Anyway,
it's impossible. Like,
but it's essentially like a mesh. But like
more so than that, right? Like now let's look at the personnel that they send up there, which just seems to be a hodgepodge of people.
Oh, it is the rainbow assortment of... We have a French, we have a Spanish, we have a Mexican, we have an African, we have a German, we have a English, we have a... Like, I mean, it's all the nations of the world.
And they have to be ragtag. It has to... They can't be, you know, precise, clear-thinking astronauts like the ones we have on the real Earth. No, they've got to be a ragtag bunch of weirdos that all have their weird quirks and their weird personality traits that don't get along very well for reasons that don't make any sense.
Oh, no, right? they do go some way to explaining it. So, like, I turned to AJ in the cinema and went, so there's just gravity on the space station for... And it's just like, I think it's just because they can't afford to have everyone on wires, like, the whole way through. But then, like, they kind of show that it's got that spinning centripetal force machine. And then at one stage, they're just like, exiting gravity zone. And then suddenly Gerard Butler just, like, starts floating. And you're like, okay, they've gone some way to explaining that technology. The other thing that I couldn't quite fathom is why there were so many handguns on a spaceship. There were at least 2. French security guy had a handgun, and English computer hacker had a like a Glock or something like that. I'm like, what are you doing? You're in space. Any small rip in the fabric here is going to cause catastrophic disasters. And you've got, like, everyone's just running around with handguns on a space station. I don't understand it.
It's one of those weird setups, right, where even though there's, hundreds of people running around the space station, it just feels like the whole operation is being run by like 2 or 3 people. So there's 21 down on Earth, and he's got limited resources somehow. Then there's Gerard Butler up in space, and the German chief scientist up there, who's also the commander. Fassbinder.
It's not Fassbender, it's Fassbinder.
Yeah.
Who looks so familiar, and I've been through her IMDb page and I cannot find out where I've seen her before, but she's somewhat familiar.
It's actually German Michael Fassbender.
Oh,
he's doing the role of a lifetime.
He is just going from strength to strength.
Unbelievable.
I did not pick him as playing a German scientist lady in Geostorm.
Called Fassbinder.
Fassbinder. It threw me off. Like, because initially I'm like, did they say Fassbender? And like, oh no, there's an I in there. Okay, so it's definitely not Michael Fassbender playing that role.
But anyway. The protocols on this whole operation make no sense whatsoever. The fact this is meant to be a worldwide collaboration, like the most top class technology you've ever seen. And yet somehow, there's handguns up there. There's rogue astronauts up there. There's weird satellite systems. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever that people can do what they can do.
I applaud the makers of this film for not letting reality get in the way of an action-packed roller coaster ride. And I really think that's the mentality that Movie Film Studios brings to all of our own film productions. And that is the lesson that we learn from Geostorm.
I need to also mention as well the technology in the film. It's a bizarre blend of current technology, so stuff like people working at like ordinary Dell monitors and a couple of basic keyboards and USB drives, and then also this crazy space age weird pockets of like amazing technology that you've never seen before. So all the important characters in this film are carrying what looks like a pen, and then folds out to be this sort of tiny screen.
It's more like a scroll, right?
Yeah.
So you've got like the 2 ends of the scroll which normally roll up, and as they unfurl it, it's a holographic screen which sits between these sort of 2...
And they can pull up any kind of information they want on it, and then later on in the film, 21 transfers information via USB key. I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And they have sort of somewhat Minority Report style holo screens, but then everywhere else, you're right, it's just like the LED sort of like flat screens that we have now as well. It's like, who knows?
It's and it's meant to be what, 2020 something?
23, from my count, somewhere around those lines.
Someone up in space is playing on a PS4 controller as well, like as if. I don't know.
It's the props department was just like, we've got a limited resources. We can do some stuff which is super sci-fi and other stuff which is modern and current. Who knows? Maybe in 2023, the PlayStation 4 is kind of like the Super Nintendo is now, and people are sort of like, it's also retro and cool. So.
Okay, yeah. But doesn't explain why there's so many handguns on the space station.
Maybe they have laser beam blaster technology and the handguns are all retro. It's like, look at these antique weapons that we're carrying around instead of the lightsabers that they have over. All right, so I think we've unraveled this film as much and gleaned as much from it as we possibly can.
Now, we have a slight problem this week. So the problem this week is that Geostorm basically is a Movie Film Studios film.
It is.
So Warner Brothers, in their infinite wisdom, have clearly stolen a script from us. They've stolen the concept. They've stolen the whole idea of blaming President Andy Garcia. We had that. We did that.
I mean, yeah.
We did that last week, right? So not only does this suggest that, well, first of all, that Movie Film Studios is coming up in the world of Hollywood. We're making an impact. But it also means that we can't release something like Geostorm now because they got the drop on us. So I think there's only one solution here.
What's that?
We do Geostorm 2.
we
get the drop and we do the sequel to Geostorm.
Because they can't blame us for taking an idea that was originally ours.
Exactly.
Just because they did the first one before our first one doesn't mean we can't do the second one before. Yeah. Okay.
Now, before we go anywhere, with the title Geostorm 2, I don't want it to read Geostorm and then the number 2. I want the 2 to replace one of the letters in Geostorm, possibly the R of storm. So it's Geosto2M.
Does a 2 look enough like an R? Or do maybe just lean into it and like replace a letter that looks nothing like a 2, like the M. I think the M looks so like...
So Geostor2.
Yeah, it can't be on the end though, can it?
So what if we get rid of the O of Geo?
What about the 2? 2O storm? That doesn't work either. Or we could just... Who knows?
Who knows? We'll figure this out. But I think we just need to be a bit more creative with it. I want it to just be
I think I actually have to replace multiple letters. So the O in Geo with a 2, and the T in Storm with a 2, and then also the R in Storm with a 2. So it's G2, S2, or 2. And that's just to like reinforce that it is definitely the second film in that film franchise.
And not the 222nd film in the franchise?
No. Okay. People are like, oh, Geostorm. Which one? Number 2.
Number 2,
I kind of forgot which one. Oh, there's a second 2 there to remind me. Was this the first? I can't remember what happened in the first one. Oh, there it is. There's another 2. Yeah. Definitely, we're seeing the sequel to Geostorm.
That's right. Now,
and you know what else we do as well, sorry?
Yep.
We're going to actually have to jam a fourth 2 in there because it's going to be set in the year 2222.
Oh, yes. And it'll be great. So when the opening title comes up, right, it'll be the title. I'm not going to say it because I can't remember where all the 2s go. But then all the letters just fade away and then you're just left with the numbers and that's how the film starts. So you know that we're in 2222. Now, do we bring... I think... see, this is the problem now. If we do set it at that time...
I know your question, and I know the answer, and it's cryogenics. Because you're going to ask, how do we get Gerard Butler and 21 and Abby Cornish...
I want the full cast
and
back.
Andy Garcia.
Because none of the main...
and Ed Harris.
I'm trying to think now.
A cybernetically enhanced Ed Harris. They're all coming back because cryogenics exists.
Because, there's only... From what I remember, only one... sort of one of the main or side characters in the film actually dies, and it's the Hong Kong contact.
Yeah.
No one else dies.
Oh, there's the British space hacker who gets sucked out. Like, he's a bad guy who gets his comeuppance by getting sucked out.
2 people die.
But he's also frozen in space somewhere.
Oh, he's already
sort of like cryogenics.
Yes. Story-wise, we can bring back those characters.
It feels a bit Aliens, right? Where Ripley's been in suspended animation for a long enough period of time that it's set even distant in the future.
Yeah.
And the world's moved on. So I suppose the biggest question here is, how has the world moved on?
This is true. So what's the world look like in 2222? Let's think.
I mean, the problem that was at the start of this film was that extreme weather events was causing havoc.
Yep.
How about, like, the opposite end? Where there's just no weather anymore. It's just really bland. And the world's just sort of like, let's go on holiday to... We can't go anywhere. The weather's it's not nicer anywhere else. It's all exactly the same. And it's caused, like, seasonal affective disorder, SAD. Yep. There's this global depression which has gripped Earth because there's no longer any weather. Because humans need that fluctuation. Because how are you going to enjoy a sunny day if you haven't had a rainy day?
So we assume that the Dutch boy satellite, the thing that makes and controls the weather, has been operating completely fine for centuries.
Yeah.
And then something happens and all the weather is just set to default.
Yeah, it's just ubiquitous. The entire planet over is this ubiquitous it's kind of a nice day.
Yeah. It's all right.
It's all right, yeah.
That's kind of pleasant. There's a bit of sun, bit of cloud. Not really anything.
Yeah, and I think because it's so ubiquitous, the Earth forms this sort of like stasis.
Yep.
And then they can turn off Dutch boy, and because there's no breezy days, that's not causing hurricanes anywhere else. It's just like it's just a nice day all year round.
So they're going to turn off Dutch boy.
Yeah, because they realize they don't need it anymore.
Oh, okay.
Because like the Earth has formed this sort of stasis.
Yep.
They've settled everything down, and it's just sort of sitting there. And suddenly this like worldwide depression sets in, and they're like, the only way that we can do this is if we reanimate Gerard Butler, because he's the only one who knows how Dutch Boy can work. We need to cybernetically engineer Ed Harris, because he's the one who wanted this turbulent weather. Like,
he needs to be the architect of it.
Jared Butler knows how to build the system. He doesn't know how to make the weather catastrophic.
They need a geostorm. This is like in the first one. It's like we don't want a geostorm.
Geostorm's going to kill us. This one is the only way to get the Earth out of stasis. Is that chain reaction geostorm?
It's like the geostorm jump starts. It resets everything on. So the whole plot of Geostorm 1 was that they needed to reboot the satellite to get it to work again. Now we need to reboot Earth.
Yeah.
How much higher can the stakes get than having to reboot Earth? And because no one knows how to turn Dutch Boy back on.
No.
Right? No one left manuals behind because, protocols mean nothing on this in this world. So no one left the instruction manuals. No one left anything. The only people that know are the people that were cryogenically frozen at the end of Geostorm 1.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, president of the 2222nd or 22 president of the US, who is that?
That's a good question.
Because it can't be. We're going to get Andy Garcia back. So maybe something should happen to that president.
You know what? You know who it is?
Who?
It's Andy Garcia's clone. And then, because obviously clones and twins don't have the same fingerprints, so he doesn't have the same biometrics to jumpstart the president. And obviously there's been a almost 200 years of uninterrupted Andy Garcia clones as president.
Yes.
But they have to bring back the original because he's the only one with the correct biometrics. Right, and then you have this dynamic between current clone Andy Garcia president and unfrozen president. And they are sort of like twins who share the same thoughts, but there's this like rivalry, like, are you going to supersede me? How's that going to happen? Character interactions, relationships, that's phenomenal.
So maybe clone Andy Garcia, maybe he's behind a bigger plot as well. Maybe he doesn't want to jumpstart Earth again. So maybe he's like, he knows he's a clone, right?
Yeah.
So I think at that point, once he's become aware of it, so none of the other clones have ever been aware of the fact that they are clones.
Oh, right, yeah.
But he is the first President Andy Garcia who is suddenly aware of of himself. He's aware that he's a clone. And as a result, a depression sets in, a funk sets in. So he internally is very depressed, and then suddenly he sees the world in the exact same feeling, in the exact same mood that he's in, and he wants to keep it that way. He's like, no, this is my home. This is how it should be. What I feel inside is what I should see outside as well. So he doesn't want Geostorm to happen.
No.
So he is behind a plot to prevent original Andy Garcia from jump-starting the satellite to get Geostorm going.
So, but then who is the impetus behind this unfreezing Jared Butler and cybernetically enhancing Ed Harris? And I don't know why 21 and Abby Cornish are coming back.
Well, because I think that, when President Andy Garcia, like original President Andy Garcia, was cryogenically frozen, he ordered his best Secret Service agent to be frozen along with him, and that is
in that classic sort of pharaoh or Chinese emperor where your servants and your bodyguards are all buried with you to protect you in cryogenically frozen afterlife.
That's right. 21 couldn't bear to be separated from Abby Cornish, so he was like, yes.
And like his role throughout the film is just sort of like, I have no reason for being here this time. Like, I mean, I've resolved my feelings for my brother, so we're getting along fine.
Yep.
Abby Cornish is quite clearly here to protect original Garcia.
Yep.
And he's just kind of in the background, and he knows it too.
Yeah, he knows.
Does he then turn? Does he go with clone? He's just like, there's no reason for me to be here.
So he can play the Ed Harris character of the original in this one. He actually turns on every... Oh, man.
That's good.
That's so good. So hang on, we still need to answer the question of who reanimates...
I mean, it's got to be a conglomerate of 16 nations, right? And this time Australia is definitely one of the nations. Let's do it like it'd be like Palau and Micronesia and the Seychelles, all these sort of like island holiday destinations as well. Going, people used to come here for holidays.
Yeah.
Because the UK used to be like dreary and dreadful, and they'd want to go to like Majorca to like on these holiday islands.
Yeah.
And now these holiday islands don't have any income because the world's like just it's kind of like all right.
I mean, and then the UK is moderately okay as well. It's not raining and it's not sort of gloomy and overcast all the time. So it's like,
it's 16 nations of the Seychelles and Micronesia and Palau and Tonga and Fiji. Yeah. And they're just sort of like, we yearn for a day where we used to be paradise.
So our Prime Minister sets forth a motion to reanimate all the people that were frozen at the end of Geostorm 1. So that's O.G. Garcia, that's Abby Cornish, Gerard Butler, 21 for some reason.
Yeah.
Ed Harris gets...
No, Ed Harris was not frozen. He's just been cybernetically enhanced.
Yeah, so they employ him as well. They formulate a plan to jumpstart Dutch Boy to create a Geostorm. In the background, machinations are happening. So we've got clone Andy Garcia, who's like, no, I don't want this to happen. 21 jumps on board as well because he's got nothing.
He's got nothing else to do. He's just like, if we're going to tell this story, I need to have a bigger role in this story. Yep. The only option is being part of the antagonist team because it's just balance. I mean, at his heart, you know that 21 understands story structure.
Yeah.
And as a person in that universe, he's just like, this story doesn't make any sense unless I'm over here.
Yep.
And so that's why he does it. And that's very noble of him to balance out our story.
Yep.
Obviously, whatever his name is, who I forget, 21, we'll call him still. He's just like, I have to make this sacrifice.
Yes.
That's his Bruce Willis moment at the end of Armageddon.
Indeed, yeah.
Where he's just like, I have to make this sacrifice for the good of the film.
Yes. But does he live at the end of it, though? Because, I mean, in Geostorm 1, Gerard Butler kind of makes that same
He does.
thing.
He does that self-sacrifice. Like, I'm staying behind. I'm the only person who can cancel this Geostorm.
Yeah.
And I'm going to die to save the world. And then they kind of just save him anyway. It's like, I just get in a satellite and someone will rescue me.
He survived, Okay.
Same sort of thing. I think when Gerard Butler and cybernetic Ed Harris save the world, and 21's just like, they just come back over. It's just like, oh, thank God you saved the world, guys. I mean, I know for story structure and balance, I had to be on the other side, but you saved it now. It's the end of the film, and we can be friends again. And they're all like, thank you, 21, for balancing out our story. Otherwise, like, there's just too many good characters, and thanks for being a bad character.
I kind of want... not to go against what you've just said, but I reckon let's have that scene play out, right? So this is the end of the film.
Yeah.
That scene plays out and it seems like it's a happy ending. Or like so let's say cybernetic Ed Harris and Gerard Butler are on the satellite. They're coming back to Earth. 21 is communicating to them saying, thank you for this and that. Or they're, telling him thank you for being the bad guy. We needed this in this film. And then there's a final plot twist where 21 opens up the trunk of his space car,
yeah, because it is the future.
It's the future, yeah.
We're talking about the state of the world, but it is also still 2222.
Yeah,
and everything's the same as it is now, except you just say the word space in front of it.
Yeah.
So he opens up the trunk of his space car.
He pulls out a rocket launcher, and he prepares to aim at the incoming satellite. So the satellite is sort of plummeting.
Space satellite.
The space satellite is plummeting to Earth with cybernetic Ed Harris and Gerard Butler in it. They've done the deed. Geostorm is happening. There's a crazy amount of weather going around them as well. I'm not even
sure it's crazy. It's just kind of drizzling. And kind of drizzling. Yeah. We haven't experienced this for 200 years. And everyone's just rejoicing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And that's how we get around the special effects budget. Because we don't actually need to put like the towers in Abu Dhabi being knocked over. It's just like a gust of wind and some leaves blow, and everyone's like, blowing wind. Where did this come from?
Well, I think we need to spend the entire VFX budget on making the ordinary bland day weather effects.
I mean, because everyone knows that there's 20 minutes of like the miracle hour or whatever they call that in film where you've actually got good lighting.
Yeah.
And because every day, every scene we shoot has to be perfect weather.
Yep.
How do we do that?
Oh, we green screen the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's just going to cost so much money. Everyone else can shoot on sets because it doesn't matter if there's clouds in the sky. It doesn't matter if there's a bit of wind or a bit of rain.
Yep.
It matters so much to our story.
Yep.
That that everything is perfect, that we can only do it in green screen.
So Geostorm blew its VFX budget on the last 20-25 minutes of the film. We're going to blow our VFX budget on the first 25 minutes of the film.
Exactly. Because once they set up the chain reaction, it's going to be like, it's just going to be regular weather.
That's right, yeah. Okay. So space satellite plummeting to Earth. 21 back of his space car, pulls out his space rocket launcher, fires a rocket out of his space rocket launcher, and then who comes in to deflect that rocket but OG Garcia? He comes in, he throws himself in front of the rocket, and he explodes.
Is he wearing an Iron Man suit, or how's he getting in front of the rocket?
I don't know. He just is. I mean, how did Abby Cornish, somehow get the car to auto drive towards the other to Ed Harris, and then just sneak up on them
exactly
in a completely deserted road.
I'm quite happy for he just did to be a reason for how it happened.
Most of Geostorm is they just have this, or this just happens, or this thing was just there.
I've got an addition to your Andy Garcia throwing him in front of the space rocket launcher, because unbeknownst to 21, the space rocket launcher was equipped with a time rocket.
Oh.
And in hitting Andy Garcia, it explodes him, but it also explodes his DNA throughout time and unravels the 200 years of Andy Garcia president clones.
Holy crap.
Geostorm 3 or 303 Storm 33, as it will be called. So we do a trilogy where the third part is set up in the final act of Geostorm.
Oh my gosh. Do we do it now?
I don't think so. I think obviously we'll have to wait and see what the critical reception of G2 is.
2.
Oh yeah, there needs a 2 on the end. I've only had 3 tunes in there. And from there, I mean, there's been some films where quite clearly the second one has tanked and the franchise has gone off the rails.
Yep.
Obviously, here at Movie Film Studios, we haven't experienced that yet, but we have to have contingencies in place.
No.
So we have that cliffhanger where suddenly, like the very last scene in Geostorm 2 is like unravels everything that has happened in Geostorm 1 and 2, and you're sort of like, what's going to happen for 3? Yeah. What is going to... I
think we shoot 2 and 3 back to back, and then with the third one, we retcon stuff into Geostorm 1. So we pick up tiny little elements in Geostorm 1 that people just thought were just side, whatever, like nothing to pay attention to, and we're like, no... There is so crucial.
Actually, a character who shows up in like the last 10 minutes of the first Geostorm, who's like NASA control center operator, who's like hasn't been in the film at all, and suddenly he's picking up on distress signals that Gerard Butler is like sending an SOS from the satellite that he's locked himself in to save himself. It's like, it's him, and he's like, oh, who are you? What are you? and then like they have the big reunited moment where everyone's saved and the world's saved, and he's just like there in the background, like, what are you doing there? He's the guy. Oh my gosh. In Geostorm 3, he plays the main character, I think. We bring him back, and everyone's just like, who was that guy? Oh, it all makes sense. That's links back on itself.
You go back and watch Geostorm 1, and suddenly all these things are sort of coming out at you, and you're like, oh my gosh, they planned this from the start, right? They knew everything. Like, we will be just unparalleled storytellers if we can pull this off. And we will pull this off.
I mean, you use the word if, and I don't know if Movie Film Studios is one to use the word if. It is definitely a when we pull this off.
Now, one thing before we head over and figure out if we're going to greenlight this or not, we need to cast ourselves in this. So last week we played millions of years old oil.
We did, yeah.
So it does have to be our corpses.
I reckon I've still got quite a lot of cryogenic freezing in this.
Yep.
I think we just have our skeletons as like mistakes made while trying to unfreeze people.
Okay, yep.
So there's like, oh, it's taken us years. Like, we obviously perfected the freezing process.
Yep.
But the unfreezing process, we kind of haven't got quite right. Yeah. And so, like, they're like, here's some people we tried to unfreeze and it went horribly wrong. And they're our corpses. It's like, we think now we've perfected it, but we've run out of people to test it on except for Gerard Butler. And you build up the suspense that way. It's like, if it goes horribly wrong and they try and unfreeze Gerard Butler and they ruin it, then the world is doomed to this malaise of just kind of, it's all right weather.
That's fantastic. So, yeah, we're the, like, precursor to that. We're kind of like the stakes.
Yeah, exactly. In every role that we're in, I really hope that we do lift the stakes of the film, even if it's just our corpses sitting in the background. There's some sort of sense of this whole sequence or this whole film wouldn't have quite worked without these characters.
And I think we've done that so far in all the films we've appeared in.
Absolutely.
Most particular last week's as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm sure the way that organic matter decomposes and forms into crude oil means that we were only a very small fraction of the carbon chains that built up that crude oil, but an integral fraction of carbon chains that built.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time to decide whether or not we greenlight not only Geostorm 2 but Geostorm 3.
So you may have noticed, AJ, when we came into the boardroom to discuss our ideas,
it's looking a bit different.
It is looking a bit different. I've replaced all the lights with green lights, and I've rebranded the boardroom as the green room.
Oh, nice.
Because I feel as though here at Movie Film Studios, every idea is automatically greenlit.
This is true.
And what better room to sit in than a room bathed in green light than we know, as we're coming up with these beautiful ideas, that they will see the light of day because everything birthed in this green room is automatically greenlit.
It's such a positive mindset as well. Why do we need to go through the whole rigmarole of like, don't know whether
can we get financing? Is it gonna fall? Can we actually cast these characters?
That's for our crack team of lawyers to take
exactly. Who needs to think about this sort of stuff? We should, movie making is everyone else makes it look like a difficult process. Like there's so many hurdles you have to get over to get things to work.
Yeah.
Here at Movie Film Studios, we've removed the hurdles, and it's just that 100-meter track, and we're sprinting headlong for the finish line.
Straight for it, head down, not even looking ahead, like barreling forward. Until we hit the line and the films are out and enjoyed by millions and millions of people worldwide.
Now, I did bring up financing, and we have talked in the past about how we get financing for our films. I don't think we did for KNIG, HDS. Because, I mean, really, it's all about oil, and oil just funds itself.
Yep.
How are we getting Geostorm 2 made?
Can we somehow... So you know how Al Gore has made An Inconvenient Truth and then the sequel as well? Was it an inconvenient sequel?
I think it was the Inconvenient Truth, or an even more inconvenient truth. I don't know what it was called. I think you're right about the sequel thing.
If we can convince him... If we let's do it we can do a quid pro quo with Al Gore, right? So we'll say to him, "Hey, come and finance Geostorm 2 and 3
with your millions and millions of Vice President dollars." Yeah, sure.
And once we make all our money from Geostorm 2 and 3, we will bankroll An Inconvenient Truth 3.
A very truthful sequel.
Yes.
I was just going off the very Brady sequel there, but it's a good naming sequence. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, he'll be up for it. Geostorm 2 and... I mean, the Geostorm trilogy is environmental in nature. I'm sure he'll be totally across it. And I think that, he could potentially cameo in
I was about to say,
2 and 3 as well. I mean, he could possibly pay Vice President Al Gore to clone Andy Garcia.
Clone Andy Garcia, yeah.
And I mean, he's got the whole glum thing going for him.
Exactly.
Considering how glum
Is there anyone more suited to just it's a kind of a nice day?
Yeah.
It's not. He is the nice day of people.
He is absolutely.
Just he's all right. He's nothing special. I don't get excited. It's not terrible. It's not phenomenal. He's somewhere. It's just kind of a nice day.
I feel like he'd be a wonderful ambassador to the Geostorm franchise. And of course, we would reciprocate for his equally, I mean, maybe not equally, but pretty good film series.
I mean, I think he does want to turn it into a trilogy and franchise it off.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We'll help him complete that third film in that trilogy.
Quid pro quo.
Because I think an inconvenient sequel ends on a cliffhanger, right? Where Al Gore's frozen in carbonite, and he has to get his friends together to go rescue him.
Yes.
I didn't see it. This is just what I hear. So
I was in the trailer.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, great. All right. We're in the green room.
We are. I mean, it's already green lit.
All right, great. Well, I think
that's it for again. I'm going to struggle to pronounce it, but G2 2 or 2. And obviously look out for that at the cinemas in the next couple of weeks.
Cinemas, it'll be
worldwide release,
simulcast on TV as well. We're not giving it. Netflix can go to hell, but I think what will end up happening is we will fund a alternative to Netflix. We'll bankroll that. And does Movie Film Studios have an internet distribution platform? Not yet.
So we are working on it.
We are working on it.
I mean, I think it was in development at Movie Film Workshops.
Yeah.
And again, that's all of that stuff's on hiatus until we can work out those legal deals.
The lawyers are working on it. I mean, they're hard. I can see them from the window down there on the factory floor. They are, yes, it's a factory floor, and they all sit at desks on the factory floor. And I can see them working. Man, they're working hard.
So let's pass this downstream. I think we'll put it through the writers' rooms. Yep. V King will have a crack at script draft, and we'll see where it goes next week. Yep. Now, we have promised on previous episodes that if anyone was to review a film or leave a comment or anything like that, they would be read out. And
we have a comment.
We have a comment. It was through our YouTube platform. I'm not sure if we've mentioned it in the past, but obviously all of our podcasts are up there on YouTube to listen to as well.
Yes, what better way to listen to an audio podcast than on a video site? But we had a comment on our Pirates of the Caribbean episode 3, and it comes from Talk 13, and he or she simply says, "Oh, terrific. Another lot of uneducated people calling Salazar a pirate. Rolls eyes."
Thank you. Thank you for that review. Very, very kind review.
So lovely.
Yeah, they say don't feed the trolls, and so I'm not saying it's a troll. To be fair, when I read this, and I do remember calling Salazar a pirate in our podcast, and it is a fair distance into the podcast, so obviously they've listened to quite a lot of it. And I think then we do correct that he's actually a pirate hunter as well, so I'm not sure if they got that far to see that we did make a correction.
No, I think they got so disgusted at our uneducatedness.
See, the word uneducated there threw me, because I thought, is this person based off an actual Spanish general of the era who was a pirate hunter? And so I did some research. I'm like, nice. Oh no, I should educate myself. This is the point of comments. It's just like they point out where your flaws are, and you go and try and fix them. No. Like, Salazar is just a fictional character. Okay. So in terms of education, the only education you can have on that character is watching the film. And we did watch the film. So I'm struggling to find out where we were educated, but I'm taking everything on board, and I through your comments, I seek self-improvement. And so if you would continue to do that for me, I very graciously take everything on board. So
I really think definitely one of the glaring issues of that film is clearly the fact that Salazar's character is so vague. I mean, okay. The rest of the film is perfect.
And I don't want to argue, like, we made a mistake and we called him a pirate when he's a pirate hunter. He does kill, like, a whole bunch of British military naval officers who are not pirates. So technically, like, is that a war crime? Or if he's dead, is he no longer a member of a nation? And so he's killing British military people. Like, that makes him a bit of a pirate. I mean, I don't want to argue our point, but
does he pillage?
He does lots of raiding of sea ships that are not legally. He's not legally
trying to find
allowed.
that MacGuff. I don't even remember what he's looking for, but he's looking for something.
I know he's trying to kill Johnny Depp. We're not going to rehash the plot. Anyway. So, like, I mean, he does things which I think in a court of law you may be able to technically clarify as piracy.
Possibly.
I will admit our mistake there, but I would also argue that it was not a mistake, and Movie Film Studios makes no mistakes.
We never make mistakes. Never. Anyway.
So where else on social media can you find us, AJ, to leave reviews for fantastic films that we've released?
You special people, you can find us on Facebook. We are at Movie Film Studios on that, or we're just Movie Film Studios on that. You can find us on Twitter, which we are at Movie Film Studio. That's probably a reflection of the fact that we have lost Movie Film Workshop, so we're now just down to a singular studio. So again, Twitter just doing its thing. You can find us on iTunes. It'd be great if you could subscribe or leave a review there. And we're also on Podbean. And I think that's it.
So obviously subscriptions, reviews, and word of mouth go a long way to getting our name out there. So if you can do that. And again, as we promised, if you leave a review, we will read it out. I think currently on iTunes there are not enough reviews yet for us to actually be able to do that. So, but yeah, that's all right.
That's fine. Well, I think it's a nice...
I think that is a wrap, as they say in the film industry, which we are definitely a part of.
So a part of.
So you've been listening to Movie Film Studios. Thank you for listening this week. I've been Isaac.
And I've been AJ.
Roll credits.
March winds and April